How did you become a non-feminist woman?
I've always been a non-feminist in real terms.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not to say I'm against women's rights. Who isn't?
Mm-hmm.
You've got, everybody deserves rights, don't they?
Yeah.
But I grew up in a family of boys.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with 3 brothers
Mm-hmm.
and very enlightened parents.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to discuss politics and religion and all sorts of things at home all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, when you're young and you are going out into the world, I'm 66 now, so I'm retired now.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have every opportunity, and I never felt that any opportunity was denied me. And I used to wonder why so many of my peer group complained.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would complain that men were unhappy with them. And it got me thinking over the years. And then I don't know whether you know about Greenham Common, the anti-nuclear base. A group of feminists were protesting for some time at Greenham Common, and some friends from my other friend's university, who were all feminists, would tell me stories about what was going on at Greenham Common, and it gave me a different view about how manipulative feminism can be. And that is something I do feel, that it can be as manipulative as any big organization can be.
Okay. And do you believe that we live in a patriarchy in the West? Do you believe that Western society is a patriarchy? Is it a patriarchal society?
Definitely not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay.
But I don't think it's a matriarchal society either.
Okay, it's a complex society.
Absolutely.
We can't define it as one way or another. Okay. What are your thoughts on traditional gender roles?
Well, I think these things emerged for a reason. I mean, I look at women. I was a librarian, a managing librarian for many years in an academic library situation. And what I saw was a lot of very ambitious women who got very upset when they reached a certain age and they couldn't find a man that would look after them. They all wanted to be, to a degree, looked after, strangely enough, even though they purported to be very independent. And I'm very, I won't say I'm maternal, but I'm very nurturing. The number of people, male and female, I've had in my arms in tears over their despair over not finding a partner is extraordinary.
Okay.
Plus, the breakdown of the family has had a huge impact too. A huge impact. But I think men and women are different. It's very subtle, but we're different.
And this is
no better than one another.
This is somehow a basis of feminism, that there's a belief that men and women are the same, and they sort of ignore that maybe there are differences when we're talking about relationships and sexuality and stuff like that. Maybe there are differences that play a role. I think nowadays it's not even safe to say that they're different, because we have all somehow believed this: men and women are exactly the same. In order to argue for equality for women, we've sort of said we're the same, and I think that is somehow not.
It's distorted things, I believe, and I think that, and I dare I say this, I think women have always, to a degree, I don't mean the poorer women in society, that's a different matter, but women in stable relationships have always had the upper hand, one way or another. It may not always be apparent, but I think back to my grandmother, who was born in 1883, and she was definitely the matriarch, and she was the most gentle, feminine woman you could ever wish to meet. But she had a strength that I think a lot of women have. And she had an intuition that I think most women have.
I can see
so
that.
I think we have the upper hand to a degree.
I can see that. I think yes, okay, traditional society always said the man has the last say, he's the head of the household. But in practical terms, within a relationship, I think that women have always had their own source of power within an intimate relationship. And
totally,
and so that it is not that the women were just at his beck and call always. Of course, sometimes that would have happened, but I don't think it would have been the absolute norm, because society also would have noticed these things and looked out for women in different ways and said, okay, if this is an abusive situation, this is what I think, but who knows? I mean, so at the moment, we have a lot of feminists who sort of write history and rewrite history, and it's very difficult to tell what the culture of the past was, or because it's now written as we were constantly abused and men had all the power.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that disturbs me greatly. Yeah. I don't know whether you've heard of Erin Pizzey.
Yes, I've heard of her. I would love to interview her.
Because I've worked in universities, I have seen, I mean, they're fundamentally women anyway. They're run by women to the main degree, apart from the techie bits, which again demonstrates the strengths and weaknesses of men and women. The men tend to be the techie people, and the women tend to have the managerial roles. And fundamentally, most of the students are women, young women who are told that they can be anything they want to be, and that they can have sex with as many men as they want to have. It's quite disturbing. You know what happens? It blows everybody's mind.
Right. I come from a more traditional society. I come from the Caribbean, by the way. I come from, let's say, I think when you think about it, this society, the Caribbean society, is a little bit older than, let's say, European society or whatever, because we kind of got stuck in time somehow, I don't know, with some things, Yeah. And so to me, I also think, what were we talking about before? I also think, there is a little difference between the genders, and you were talking about that now women can have sex with as many people, and so I think
men benefit from that.
When we do these things, we are not considering the difference between the genders. That's where we forget about the difference. You see, because we promote that women can sleep around, and that and this is all based on the idea that men and women are identical. So if men can sleep around, women can sleep around, the effects will be the same. But
oh no.
But maybe the effects are not the same. Maybe.
Let me tell you, many young women have said to me, well, I slept with him because it was expected of me. You can say no. And the regret what young women might have later on in life is not worth it. And I think this is the difference between men and women. Men can get away with that, not all men, and not all men are swines.
But you see,
women,
what I find too, I just had this thought. I'm having this thought recently, is that women and feminist women are judging men by their own standards without acknowledging that men may be different. In that, women are saying, okay, since women personally may not have so much of a problem with men who sleep around a lot or who have had many partners, then men won't. But what if men have a problem with that? There's no consideration. What the women are saying, we ourselves don't care about how women look. So men shouldn't care about how we look. So men shouldn't care about how many people we sleep with. So men shouldn't care about, you understand? But
absolutely.
But maybe the concerns of each gender when we talk about relationships may be different. So in that, for women, it may be more important that a guy is I don't know what may be more important, but this and this, maybe that he's intelligent or that he has drive. This might be more important. But for a guy, it might be quite important that she is a bit, I don't know, more conservative or whatever. And this has to be considered, that we're not always looking for the same things.
Absolutely. And I think the trouble is that because a whole raft of young women from nursery school upwards have been told, you're every bit as good as a man, we should know that we're better. I mean, I was brought up in a family of men, and they're lovely men. I'm very blessed. My father was a gentleman, and my three brothers, all gentlemen. And I had a son who I lost 5 years ago. He was a gentleman. I'm not used to these rough men that, just want you for one thing. And the trouble is they are very persuasive to women who think that they can have sex in the same way. And they invariably regret it, because these men sleep with them and then think, oh, well, she slept with me. She's obviously sleeping with loads of other guys. I won't bother with her. So you lose the emotional connection in reality, but you've still got the emotional, oh my God, I slept with him and I love him. Women fall in love very easily once they sleep with a man. Men are not quite the same. And I think it's also very unfair on men, because they don't know where they stand with women. They don't know whether they should make a move. This is why you've got these incels. Is that what they're called? Incels?
No, but it's true. Men are totally confused, and I would be too, by the messages that are sent. Because the messages, for example, now with all of this, what do we talk about, sexual assault and the bare man versus bare Me Too and so on, women are saying they have been sexually assaulted. The message is basically that men need to leave women alone, in a sense, right? But then they complain that they've been so badly assaulted and men did nothing. So I think men are really confused, because what were they supposed to do? I mean,
I know. I totally agree with you. And I think that because back in the 80s, I knew people who were very feminist, the beginnings of the radical feminism that I feel has had such a detrimental effect on society. A lot of these ladies, and I've worked with a lot of lesbians, and they're lovely. A lot of them are lovely people. These radical feminists are often grooming people as well into lesbianism to feel more comfortable with it. Whereas, normal lesbians are very accepting of their way of life, and they don't want to brag about it. They want to be discreet with their partners. Whereas a lot of these feminist women, we're all lesbians, we're all bisexual, we're all this. Where they get this information from, I don't know, because I haven't experienced that with the interactions I've had with thousands of people in my life. Most people are looking for a soulmate. I know we don't all find one, but this is what I feel both sexes, whatever they say about men, they want to settle down as well. I think most humans do, which perhaps is why marriage was thought about in the first place. One man and one woman. I know that's quite biblical.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it works. I came from a relationship like that. My mum and dad, they were from a different generation. Both served in World War II. My mum worked on the Enigma project, and my dad was literally everywhere. Africa, India, Dunkirk. And they had a huge awakening, because they had been in this very class system, which Britain was in those days, in the 1920s, 30s. Suddenly the world is open to them, and it compounded a lot of views they had on various topics. They were both quite socialist in the truest sense of the word. They were quite left-wing, but they would be horrified now if they were to come back to see how it's been taken over by people.
I agree. In terms of, I consider myself to be left, in that I really believe that everybody should be able to live the way they want to, and
so do I.
We need freedoms and stuff like this. Everybody has to have their freedom. I don't care if you are gay or whatever.
Neither do I.
Yes, and even if I can't understand your way of life, you have a right to live that way. So we need freedom in terms of this. Left is fine. But absolutely. I find that in very left circles, I am being diminished, and my heart is broken, because I myself, I come from a conservative background. I am not religious. However, I have a lot of respect for religion. I think religion is, in fact, not just what people see as religion. I see religion as culture.
So do I.
Exactly. Religion is simply our culture. It is a cultural. It's a culture. It's what the culture said were the norms, and it was passed on from one generation to the next. And I understand that culture will always be changing, and it has to change. However, the extreme left, and in these extreme left circles, they hate religion. They hate the culture. They want to destroy
their religion.
they want to destroy it, and they can see no good in it. And and the parts of it that are even not disturbing people, they're saying it's toxic, it's all bad. And it's just like, can we just allow people to live as they want? If people want to follow these cultural norms, allow it.
Absolutely.
You understand?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm in total agreement with everything you've just said.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a cultural Christian.
Yeah.
I'm not a practicing religious person.
I never heard the term before. I never heard the term before, but I guess that's what I am too. I agree. I am not religious in the sense of, okay, and I don't go to church or something, and I don't believe in religion in general, okay? But I come from a background where the society was religious, and therefore the culture that I grew up in was religious, and it fit to me. I've never had a problem with it, except for the parts of it where they don't like, if they don't like gay people or stuff like this is very bad. LGBTQ.
Of course it is.
Except for these parts of it. And society needs to throw out those parts, okay. But they
would have done.
They would have done, exactly. Because society advanced. It advanced. Exactly. And so we would throw out those parts. We will definitely throw out those parts. But we don't need to break the whole thing apart and say that every part of it is, all we need is a certain amount of freedom so that people are free to live
within the constraints of society.
Within the constraints of society, even when they don't fit into norm. People who are not normal need to be able to live comfortably within society.
Of course they do.
But the rest of people also need to be able to live, and we don't need, you understand? This extreme breaking of...
Okay. I can't tell you how much I agree with everything you've said, because this is my take entirely. And I mean, I've worked with very left-wing people. Well, they say they're left-wing, but what I've found, and this is probably going off a little bit at a tangent,
okay. But I've
found they're money-obsessed. They're absolutely money-obsessed, the left.
Yeah.
We're in a way that I find more conservative people don't talk about it quite so much. It's not that they don't care, but I find it quite extraordinary. Having been brought up in a predominantly socialist home as a young woman in the 60s and 70s, I was born in 1958, my parents were ostensibly left-wing, Labour supporting, and they had certain values that had nothing to do with money. And money was not the centre of our universe. Now I find capitalism is very much at the centre of every single cult and every single organisation, like the Feminist organisation, which I believe has made lots of money. Whoever's in charge of it, I think there's a huge amount of money that's been made by a lot of these very prominent feminists, and probably some underneath as well. So this is another reason why I distrust feminism.
Yeah,
because it's just keeping itself alive with hatred of men.
Of men, right?
And perhaps other women.
Right.
I'm mad. I think on both sides. It's only people like us in the middle that can see the sense of everything. And I feel that's the same about everything. I think it's the same with anything that's going on in the world. You always get us in the middle that can see it.
In all of
the
these
radicals.
groups, once you form a group, what happens is that people want to control other people. And I find that also in Women Against Feminism. That's what I meant with it breaks my heart in a sense, because I have this problem also in Women Against Feminism, in that I really believe that it should be just an open group of diverse people with diverse opinions, and whatever is your opinion is your opinion. You can work together with people. But people don't want to work with each other who don't have the same goals or ideals. And
absolutely.
And then what happens is that some portions want to control the other people and put in rules and put in standards, and then it just becomes it just becomes extreme. Because
totally agree.
Yeah. It's like you all need the balance of the other side, because
absolutely, and then it's gone because it can be absorbed. If people are a little bit weaker, people like to please, don't they? And if they're in part of a group, they've got to go, I agree with you. Yes,
I agree. So I also suffer from this, in that I have a very wide opinion, so I can probably see from the extreme this to the extreme that. I can see all these different things making sense, right? But yeah, it so happens when you're talking to certain people, sometimes you're like, not with you. I mean, I just mean sometimes it happens that like you're just like, okay, yeah, yeah. I don't know. You don't want to fight, you know.
Absolutely,
So
yeah. I do
yeah,
know.
so people go with it, and what happens is that you can never really express. It's like nuance, because
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, I could argue for this side of things, but I can equally think and argue for the other side. And when you argue for one side, then everybody will assume also that you think on the extreme on this side. But actually no, there are two parts to this, you know. This makes sense, but
Absolutely.
this also, and this is, yeah, very important to bring this nuance back, that people are able to, you know,
Absolutely.
yeah.
But it's difficult because all of us, male and female, are emotional beings as well. So you and I could be in a meeting with people and we disagree with them, but we're disagreeing with them for different reasons, or agreeing with them for different personal reasons. And I'm going to say something that I say to a lot of people and I get poo-pooed.
Right.
The breakdown of the family has made young women and men more vulnerable in ways you could never imagine on paper.
I agree.
What I've seen, because I've counseled a lot of young people, what I've seen is that when families break up, the fathers who don't see the children very often or abandon them, they might abandon them completely or be abandoned completely. They tend to fuss over their daughters, especially more. And it gives young women a sense of themselves that they might not have if they were brought up in a stable two-parent family. I can see the difference between people who've been brought up knowing their father to those that have been brought up seeing him occasionally and him just buying them loads of presents and telling them how wonderful they are to excess. And these are often very average people who've been, what with feminism and being brought up in a family that they feel inadequate in, they embrace feminism because they think they're wonderful. And this is what feminism tells them. You go out and get it, girl. But not everybody can be whatever they want to be. I think you have limitations within yourself. And one of the greatest gifts is knowing what your limitations are. And as an older woman, I can say that there's lots of things I would have liked to have done that I've never done. And I can reflect on mine now because I was never meant to do those things. I was born to be whatever I'm born to be. It's very difficult for young people nowadays to know what they should be doing, because they all have to go to university, even those that don't want to go, because otherwise you're in competition with people who've got degrees. And it's very difficult because I don't think that's the best way for most people. I think lots of people would benefit from not going to university and going into a really useful job, which are being eradicated right across the board. So it's a wider issue. It's the issue of society as well. We're living in very complex times.
It's really interesting because for me also, you see, there's a breakdown of community as well, of course, because society is so much bigger. We have the internet. We don't need each other. Okay, so community has been pretty much broken down on a community level. And then you see, like, through things like, I am a bit always interested in this whole thing on the internet with trad wives or whatever. You see that there are a lot of women who post like homestead videos, gardening, trad wife, whatever. So we are looking at this sort of simplicity time, and we are longing for something closer to nature, something closer to people, something closer to you know, using your body instead of just all of this technology and distance between humans and stuff. Like we crave these sort of nature-based things, relationships and people, and connecting with the earth and homestead and stuff like that.
Absolutely,
but society is making no attempt to allow us the room to go back to that, despite all the technology, despite we just keep going for more and more, and there's no attempt to bring us back to something that we so clearly crave, you know?
Absolutely, I totally agree.
Yeah, and then
it needs to be simplified, doesn't it? We need a simpler, But the trouble is, we've got a lot of
no, well, it is
in
complicated, of
charge.
course, because we have to advance in order to feed everybody and stuff. So I understand why. But I mean, just also on a feminist level, like when they have all these women making these videos about homestead and thing, the feminists came out and they're upset with the women because they're saying y'all are encouraging women to stay at home and not make money and stuff like this. And I think, isn't it crazy that people are saying that they miss nature and humans, right? And instead of like just listening to the people, we are worried about whether or not women are dependent on men.
Absolutely.
You know, it's like
absolutely.
Yeah.